Close your eyes for a moment and imagine the smell of Rome before you see it. Not marble first, but smoke. Pine resin from cooking fires, damp wool drying on balconies, hot iron from a blacksmith street, and the river itself, the Tiber, carrying silt and stories down from the Apennines. Now imagine you are not a senator or a poet. You are the kind of person history usually counts only as a number, a fighter, a commodity, a body trained to turn fear into skill. This is the Rome of Julius Caesar, the last decades of the Republic, when politics is not a debate, but a contest of power backed by legions. You will walk with me through the Subura's crowded alleys and into the open sky of the Campus Martius, where temporary arenas rise like wooden ships. You will feel the ground tremble when crowds chant a name, and you will hear the quieter sounds that matter more, the scrape of a whetstone on steel, the click of a helmet's cheek guards, the breath you take before you step into sunlight. Over 4 chapters, I will take you from the provinces into the training schools of Campania, then to Rome's games, and finally across the Mediterranean world that Caesar's wars set on fire. Greece, Africa, and Hispania. I will show you what a gladiator sees that a general does not. Not just battles, but the roads, ports, supply lines, camp routines, coinage, propaganda, and the way geography decides who lives and who becomes a rumor. Now, come with me. Let me put a sword in your hand and a world at your feet. Channel note: if you enjoy immersive documentary-style stories like this, please subscribe to the channel and like this video. It helps the channel grow, and it makes it possible to bring you the next chapters and new eras. Chapter 1. The net, the chain, the road to Capua. You do not become a gladiator the way a boy becomes a man. You become one the way a river claims a stone, by force, by time, and by being carried where you did not choose to go. My story begins north of Rome, in the worked lands of Cisalpine Gaul. Roman roads there cut straight lines through fields, and the Alps sit like a pale wall on the horizon. Traders talk about Caesar as if he is a season, his legions moving beyond the mountains, his victories in Gaul, the way his name makes prices rise and fall. I was not a senator's son. I was a strong back with a short future, the kind of person who could be pressed into a levy, hired as muscle, or taken when debt turned into law. The first lesson of the Republic is that it is built on paperwork. A person can lose freedom because a mark of ink says they owe more than they can pay. When my master died, creditors came like wolves with polite faces. The estate was measured, seals were pressed, and people were counted as if we were tools. I remember the sound of a stylus scratching wax tablets, and the way a clerk would not meet my eyes. My name became an entry. My body became collateral. The sale was legal, orderly, and final. From the north, they marched us south along the spine of Italy. Even without a map, you feel the country's logic. The Apennines run like a backbone. Towns cling to ridges. Valleys funnel you onto predictable routes. Rivers are small compared to the Rhine or the Po, but in Italy, even modest streams matter, because every crossing is a choke point, every bridge a toll, every ford a rumor. We passed the Rubicon, a quiet ribbon of water, and heard old soldiers speak of it as a boundary that only seems small until someone dares to break what it symbolizes. We moved on stone roads where milestones told you the distance to Rome, as if Rome were the only true center of the world. At night, we slept in roadside stations and barns, And I learned to read the Republic by its infrastructure: drainage ditches, retaining walls, bridges arched over gullies, and the disciplined grid of fields laid out by surveyors generations before. The Republic's power is not only legions, it is logistics. It is the certainty that a cart of grain will arrive, that a courier can change horses and keep moving, that a command from a distant magistrate will reach the next town before the next market day. When the road reached Campania, the air changed. It grew heavier, rich with sea salt from the Tyrrhenian coast and with the fertile smell of volcanic soil. To the east, Vesuvius rose green and quiet, long before it became the catastrophe your history books know. Campania was Rome's garden and its pleasure ground, full of villas, orchards, and markets. It was also full of training schools, because the wealthy wanted entertainment close at hand, and because ports like Puteoli made it easy to move men, weapons, and food. Capua is where the world turns you into a product. The training school, the ludus, is not a dungeon in the way stories like to imagine. It is a business. High walls, yes, and guards, yes, but also order, a central yard of packed earth, a shrine to Nemesis and the household gods, all kitchen that smells of barley and beans, and sleeping quarters set like cells around the courtyard. The lanista looked at us the way a merchant looks at animals in a market, assessing joints, shoulders, scars, temperament. A physician inspected our teeth and skin. A trainer tested our balance with a shove. They were not judging our souls. They were pricing our futures. The first weeks strip away old reflexes. You learn to stand in balance, to keep your shoulders loose so fatigue does not lock you, to breathe through the nose when your lungs want to panic. The wooden sword, the rudis, feels light until you are told to strike a post again and again until your forearms burn and your hands blister. Trainers correct you with a stick, not to humiliate you, but to keep you alive later. Every motion is drilled until it becomes automatic, because in an arena, your mind will be crowded with noise and fear, and only training will still speak clearly. You might ask, what kind of gladiator I became? Not all fought the same. Some were heavy, like a wall, the Murmillo with a big shield and a helmet crested like a fish. Some were nimble, with a small shield and curved sword, the Thraex, named for Thrace. Some carried a net and trident, the Retiarius, lightly armored and meant to fight like a hunter. The lanista chose for me what he thought the crowd would love. I became a secutor, the pursuer, trained to chase the net man. That meant a smooth helmet with small eye openings so a net could not easily snag it. It meant a broad shield, a short sword, and the expectation that I would keep moving forward. Life in the ludus teaches a harsh paradox. You are enslaved, but you are also an investment. You eat better than many free men in Rome's alleys. Thick barley porridge, beans, dried fruit when it is cheap, and sometimes cheese. We drank sour wine mixed with water, and after hard training, we were given ash water, a gritty drink that trainers believed strengthened bones. Our skin was oiled, then scraped with a strigil after exercise. Cuts were cleaned, bruises were watched. Infection was feared more than pain, because infection steals weeks, and weeks steal money. And always beyond the walls, the Republic creaked. In the evenings, rumors leaked into the yard like smoke. Caesar is returning from Gaul with unmatched prestige. Pompey, once his ally, stands as the great man of the Senate. Elections are bought, Street violence is hired. Laws are passed with threats in the background. You hear place names like Omens, Ravenna, Ariminum, Brundisium. They are ports, crossroads, and gates. Whoever holds roads and harbors holds the state. Then a messenger arrived with a simple order. Rome wanted games. Caesar wanted games. He was rising, and he understood what Rome had always understood. Grain keeps you alive. Spectacle keeps you loyal. The lanista smiled the way a ship owner smiles when the wind turns favorable. That night, on my pallet, I understood something that still feels cold when I say it. The arena is not just a circle of sand. It is Rome itself, concentrated into one public question. Who is worth saving, and who is worth watching fall? Chapter 2. Rome, the wooden arena, and Caesar's crowd. When they move you from Capua to Rome, the road feels different even though the stones are the same. South of the city, the Via Appia is lined with tombs and inscriptions, a silent corridor of names. It is Rome's first lesson to visitors. The state endures, individuals do not. You pass vineyards and suburban farms, then the houses thicken, then the smoke. By the time you see the city's hills, you have already smelled them. Rome in Caesar's day is not the clean postcard people imagine. It is a loud, vertical maze of brick apartment blocks leaning over narrow streets. The Subura is the city's belly, kitchens, brothels, workshops, and crowds pressed shoulder to shoulder. Above it rise the political heights, literally and metaphorically. The Forum lies like a stone throat between the Capitoline and Palatine hills, crowded with basilicas, temples, courts, and the shouting of advocates. If you stand there at midday, you hear dozens of voices competing at once. Sellers of legal services, debt collectors, priests, politicians, and ordinary people trying to survive. We were brought to a small holding school inside the city near the Tiber because gladiators in Rome are kept close and watched closely. The river is a working river, barges bringing grain and marble, ferries crossing between neighborhoods, fishermen pulling nets where the water slows. Across the water lies the Campus Martius, the field of Mars, a broad, flat area used for assemblies, military musters, and public spectacles. This is where Caesar's Rome shows its genius. The city turns empty ground into a machine for emotion. In those years, there is not yet the great stone amphitheater you know from later emperors. When Rome wants massive games, it builds them like a campaign builds a fort, quickly, in timber, with thousands of hands. Caesar's organizers raise a temporary amphitheater with seating tiers and corridors, all wood, all noise, smelling of fresh-cut pine and pitch. You can hear it before you see it. Hammers, saws, carts, men shouting measurements. A structure like that is not only architecture, it is a statement. The state can mobilize labor for pleasure as easily as it mobilizes it for war. The day of the games begins with a procession. You will hear the crowd before you enter, a rolling sound like surf. Inside, the seating is stratified like society. Senators closest, then equestrians, then the mass of citizens, then women higher up, and above all the standing room where poor men press against one another and shout themselves hoarse. Vendors move through the aisles, selling bread, olives, watered wine. The smell is sweat, dust, oil, and roasting meat. When the sun hits the arena sand, the heat rises like breath. And then Caesar appears, not as a distant legend, but as a man in a place of honor surrounded by clients and officers. He has the calm posture of someone used to being watched. His power is not only in legions, it is in attention. When he moves, thousands of eyes follow. In the stands, you can feel the political temperature. Some people cheer too loudly to be sincere, others applaud with careful faces, and some remain silent. Rome is a city that reads gestures. When my turn comes, you walk with me through the gate, and the noise hits like a physical blow. The arena is a bowl of faces. Every person is looking at you, but none of them sees you. They see a role, secutor, pursuer. My helmet narrows my vision to a tunnel. My breath is loud inside the metal, and I taste copper from the air and from my own nerves. Opposite me stands a retiarius, the net man. He is almost naked compared to me, protected mainly by a shoulder guard and his speed. His weapons look simple, but they are a geometry problem. The net is meant to steal my balance and my sight. The trident is meant to keep distance. The dagger is for when distance fails. The referee, the summa rudis, signals, and the fight begins. You would expect it to be wild. It is not. It is technical. The first seconds are testing, footwork, feints, angles. I keep my shield high because the net is not just rope, it is control. He circles, trying to force me to turn because a heavy fighter who turns too much wastes energy. I advance in short steps, not running, because running makes you predictable and makes the crowd think you are panicking. The sand shifts under our feet, and you learn quickly that the arena floor is part of the weapon. When the net finally comes, it is a blur. I lift my shield and turn my shoulder so it catches without wrapping my head. If it wraps the helmet, you are blind. I slash at the weighted edge, trying to free myself. The crowd reacts to every small change as if it were fate. You can feel their mood like weather. They want momentum. They want a story. There is a moment in every arena fight when the world narrows to three things: your breath, the other man's eyes, and the distance between you. In that moment, politics, Caesar, Rome, all of it vanishes. A retiarius is taught to keep you at the end of his trident. A secutor is taught to close the distance and make the fight ugly, where speed matters less than control. I drive forward behind my shield, accept a cut on the arm to gain a grip on his weapon shaft and force the trident down. He pulls back, tries to slip away, and I keep pressure because pressure is the only language my equipment is built to speak. I will not paint it as heroic. It is work, it is exhaustion and calculation, and the dull knowledge that you must hurt a man you might have eaten with yesterday. I strike to disable because killing is not always the goal. The sponsor owns us. A dead gladiator is a loss. The crowd wants blood, yes, but it also wants familiar names to return. When he falls and cannot rise, I step back and look to the referee, then to Caesar's section, because that is where decisions begin to echo. The crowd chants for mercy or death like a tide split in two currents. Sometimes the sponsor follows the crowd. Sometimes he defies it to show authority. Caesar, on that day, chooses to spare. The retiarius is dragged out alive, and I am led away with my ears ringing and my legs shaking. In the corridor beneath the seats, away from the sun, the air is cooler and smells of wet wood. A physician checks my wound and binds it. A handler presses a cup into my hand. Above us, Rome is still roaring, as if nothing happened and everything happened at once. That is what you learn in Rome. The arena is a mirror. It reflects what the city is willing to admit about itself. That power is spectacle, that violence is organized, and that every citizen, even the ones cheering, is part of the machine. Chapter 3. Civil War under Canvas, from the eyes Adriatic to Pharsalus. If you think gladiators live only inside arenas, Caesar's Rome corrects you. War in those years is not a distant thing. It is the background noise of every market, the reason prices jump, the reason young men vanish from streets, the reason politicians travel with bodyguards. And when war comes, entertainment travels with it, because morale is a supply like grain. In 49 BCE, the rumors in Rome sharpen into certainty. Caesar crosses the Rubicon with his army. People say the words as if they are magic, as if a river can curse a man, but the meaning is practical. He has chosen civil war rather than political surrender. In the city, you feel the shift immediately. Senators flee, Pompey's supporters empty their houses, notices appear on walls, men whisper in porticos. You can almost map loyalties by neighborhood. Our lanista received an offer that was impossible to refuse. Caesar's agents wanted fighters attached to a traveling spectacle, not to fight in the open field, but to stage contests for troops and for allied towns, to remind everyone that Caesar's side brought order, confidence, and rewards. We were loaded onto wagons with our kit, marched to the southern roads, and sent toward the Adriatic. The geography of Italy matters here more than ideology. To move armies, you need ports. Brundisium, on the heel of Italy, is a gateway city. Its harbor shaped like a deer's head with protected inlets. In peacetime, it smells of fish, tar, and imported spices. In war, it smells of rope and fear. You see entire legions packed on the shoreline, their shields stacked like walls, their tents laid out in perfect grids. Officers carry writing tablets, supply men count sacks, mules bray. The Roman army is a moving city, and like any city, it needs food, water, and discipline to avoid collapsing into panic. Crossing the Adriatic is a lesson in vulnerability. The sea between Italy and Epirus is not huge, but it can turn fast. The transports are broad-bellied, ships crowded, creaking, salted with spray. You watch the coastline fall away and understand that every soldier is now dependent on weather. This is the part of war the speeches never mention. The gods of the sea have veto power. We landed on the Balkan coast, near places Romans call by Greek names Dyrrhachium, Apollonia, the old roads that run inland toward Macedonia. The land there is different from Italy. The mountains rise sharper, the valleys narrow, the rivers colder. Villages cling to slopes, and olive trees twist as if they are bracing against wind. Caesar's army moved fast, building camps each night with the same ritual: ditch, rampart, palisade. Watching that work, you realize why Rome conquered. Discipline is architecture. It turns temporary ground into a fortress before dawn. Soon we were close enough to the front to feel the war. At Dyrrhachium, Caesar tried to trap Pompey near the sea by building lines of fortifications, walls, and trenches that stretched for miles over hills and ridges. Pompey answered with his own lines. The landscape became a scar of earthworks. From a distance, it looked like snakes of soil. Up close, it was mud, sweat, splinters, and men carrying baskets of dirt. Soldiers spoke of hunger, of foraging parties ambushed in ravines, of water sources contested like cities. We performed exhibitions behind the lines, not in grand amphitheaters, but on flattened ground ringed with shields. It sounds absurd, but it worked. The men laughed, shouted bets, and for an hour forgot the anxiety of waiting. I watched centurions with scarred faces cheer like boys, and I learned something uncomfortable. Violence is easier to watch when it is framed, announced, and controlled. That is what the arena is, a controlled way to look at the chaos of war. After setbacks near Dyrrhachium, Caesar marched inland into Thessaly, toward open plains where an army can finally breathe. You feel the change in terrain. The coastal hills give way to broader valleys. The roads run straighter, the dust is finer. At Pharsalus, the armies met. I was not in the battle line. Gladiators were too valuable and too politically symbolic to waste as common soldiers, but I was close enough to see the shape of it. An ancient battle is not a movie scene. It is hours of waiting with moments of shock. From a rise, you see two systems facing each other, lines of men in helmets, cavalry on the wings, the glitter of spear points, the banners, the gaps. You hear horns and shouted commands, but the words blur into a single roar. When the lines move, it is slow at first, like two doors closing. Then the front ranks meet and the sound changes, metal on metal, shield on shield, the deep grunt of people pushing. Dust rises and hides parts of the field, so you lose the battle in fragments. A group of men running, a standard falling, a cloud of thrown javelins, a sudden gap where someone broke. Caesar's veterans, hardened by years in Gaul, held their line with a stubbornness that felt like a wall. Pompey's men were numerous and well supplied, but an army is more than numbers. When Pompey's cavalry was checked and turned, the balance shifted. You could feel it in the air, the way you feel a storm decide its direction. Later, we heard the results in the language war always uses: thousands dead, prisoners taken, leaders fleeing. Pompey escaped toward Egypt. Caesar pursued because civil war is not finished until the story's finished. For us, the aftermath meant movement. Victories create parades, and parades require performers. Months later, when we returned to Rome, the city did what it always does. It absorbed tragedy and turned it into ceremony. Caesar celebrated triumphs. The streets were draped, incense burned, spoils displayed, exotic animals marched. There were public feasts and, yes, games. In the Campus Martius, they built more temporary structures, larger now because Caesar was not only rewarding Rome, he was rewriting what Rome thought it could be. You walk through Rome at that moment, and you can almost hear two histories talking over each other. One says the Republic still exists: magistrates, elections, speeches. The other says a new thing is being born. One man's authority, backed by soldiers, spectacle, and a calendar that he is even reforming to control time itself. As a gladiator, you live in the space between those histories. You are both proof of Rome's old cruelty and a tool of its new politics. And you begin to understand that your life is tied to geography again: Italy, Greece, Africa, Hispania. The Republic's world is a ring, and Caesar is walking its edge with a sword in his hand. Chapter 4. Africa, Hispania, and the day the Republic broke after Pharsalus. You might think the story ends. It does not. Civil wars do not end when one battle is won, because the defeated side splinters and finds new ground. And Caesar, for all his speed and talent, had to chase the Republic's ghosts across the map. When we were sent south again, it was to Africa, to the old province near the ruins of Carthage. The sea route from Italy follows a familiar arc, down the western coast, past Sicily like a stone thrown into the sea, then across to the African shore. From the deck, you watch the color of the water change and understand why Rome fought so hard for Sicily and the grain routes. Whoever controls these waters controls Rome's stomach. Africa is not one landscape, it is a gradient. Near the coast you see rich plains and olive groves around towns rebuilt under Roman rule. Farther inland, the land dries, the wind carries dust, and salt crusts the edges of shallow lakes. The light is harsher than in Italy, and the sky feels wider. Caesar's opponents gathered there with allied kings and hardened veterans who refused to submit. Near Thapsus, the armies moved among low hills and flat expanses where cavalry could sweep and where elephants could be used as moving shock. I saw elephants for the first time there, not in a parade, but in war. They are not monsters the way frightened people describe them, but they are enormous, patient, and terrifying in their calm. Soldiers talk about nerves more than blades. A frightened horse will not go near an elephant. A frightened person will not hold a line if they believe the gods have sent a wall of moving flesh against them. Caesar's men prepared by drilling, by training to open lanes, by using missiles and noise to turn confidence into panic on the other side. Again, we were not placed in the main line. We were used as spectacle and as message. A camp with games looks confident. A commander who can afford entertainment looks like a person who expects to win. That is propaganda in its oldest form, not words, but atmosphere. Still, I was near enough to hear the battle's distant thunder. Afterward, the reports came through camp like cold rain. Caesar had won again, and the remaining resistance began to break apart. But the war had one more stronghold, and it was not in Africa. It was in Hispania, the Iberian Peninsula, where Caesar's enemies rallied around the sons of Pompey and the last networks of loyalty to the old Senate cause. The sea crossing took us to the southern coast. Then the march carried us inland through Andalusia, a land of river valleys and rolling ridges. The Guadalquivir, wide and slow in places, feeds farms and towns that have their own identities older than Rome. Hispania is where Rome learned hard lessons earlier, fighting stubborn tribes and long guerrilla wars. It is also where soldiers dream of land and retirement, because a victory there can turn a veteran into a settler. At Munda, the fighting was brutal and close on uneven ground where hills broke the neat geometry of battle lines. Veterans said it was one of the hardest days Caesar ever faced because the enemy fought with the desperation of people who knew there was nowhere left to run. I remember standing with other non-combatants on a ridge, watching dust swallow the field, hearing the distant clang that carries when thousands of iron rims and blades meet. The sun in Hispania feels sharper than in Italy, and sweat dries quickly, leaving salt on skin like a second layer of dust. Then we returned to Rome, and for a short time, the city tried to behave as if the world had settled. Caesar was now dictator, a title that once meant emergency authority for a limited time, but now felt like a permanent lock on the state. He planned colonies for veterans, reformed debts, reorganized the calendar, filled the Senate with new men, and spoke of campaigns still to come. Some Romans loved him for stability. Some feared him for the same reason. The streets carried both kinds of talk, sometimes whispered, sometimes shouted, depending on who was nearby. As a gladiator, you feel the politics in small ways. You notice which patrons visit the ludus and which stop coming. You notice which nobles sponsor games and which avoid public association. You notice that people who once swaggered through the forum now travel with more guards. You notice how the crowd's mood shifts when Caesar's name is spoken. Rome is a city that can cheer and resent at the same time. And then comes the day that still echoes through every stone of the city, the Ides of March. You are not inside the Senate House because fighters do not belong there, but you feel the rupture almost immediately. Messengers run, shops close, People gather in knots, asking the same question with different faces. Is Caesar dead? And if he is, what happens to us? The geography of Rome suddenly matters again. The Capitoline Hill becomes a fortress. The Forum becomes a loud void. The streets become channels for rumor and fear. When the truth hardens, you understand the deeper irony. Caesar's killers said they were saving the Republic, but the Republic they tried to save had already been changed by years of civil war, by armies loyal to generals, by the habit of solving politics with force. Killing a person did not remove those conditions. It only removed the one figure holding them together for the moment. For me, the aftermath was uncertainty. Games were postponed, then held again. New leaders rose, Antony with his voice and his veterans, Octavian with his name and his cold patience. In the ludus, we kept training, because Rome's hunger for spectacle never truly stops, even when the state is bleeding. If anything, it grows. People want distraction. They want proof that the world still has rules, that someone can still raise a hand and decide an outcome. So when you ask what it would be like to be a gladiator in Julius Caesar's time, this is my answer. You would live inside the Republic's contradictions. You would travel the Mediterranean not as a citizen, but as cargo. You would see that geography is destiny, rivers that become political lines, ports that become lifelines, plains that invite battle, hills that protect or trap. And you would learn that the arena is not separate from history. It is one of history's engines, turning fear into entertainment and noise into consent. Final note: if you made it this far, thank you for walking through that world with me. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe and like the video. It directly helps the channel, and it tells YouTube that you want more documentary-style stories like this. Write a comment with the era or place you want next, and I will build the next journey around it.